There is a groundbreaking development in Africa tonight. Take a look at this video of the ground breaking open here. The rift is several miles long, and some believe it is a sign the continent is splitting in two, ever so slowly.
Brace yourself. A gargantuan crack is tearing Africa in two, forging a brand new ocean beneath our feet. Elon Musk has weighed in, calling the continent's future over, and the stats back him up. Geological forces are at play, threatening upheaval faster than experts predicted. As colossal fissures expand, unstoppable quakes and volcanic eruptions loom on the horizon. Forget waiting millions of years. This transformation has already begun. The East African Rift. The East African Rift is an enormous crack in the Earth's surface that stretches across East Africa. Scientists believe it is slowly splitting the African continent into two separate land masses, which could eventually form a brand new ocean. This rift runs from the Afar region in Ethiopia down to Mozambique, crossing countries like Kenya and Tanzania along the way. It is actually made up of two main branches known as the Eastern Rift and the Western Rift. Even though the rift is pulling apart at only a few millimeters each year, that small movement still adds up over millions of years. Along the way, we see dramatic landscapes, such as towering cliffs, deep valleys, and big lakes. These features remind us that powerful forces are shaping the land all the time. One remarkable example is a huge crack in Kenya, which first grabbed headlines in 2018. That crack continued to grow, startling many people who did not realize such changes can happen so visibly on land. You might wonder how this rift forms. Under the ground, hot molten rock called magma pushes upward, creating stress in the Earth's crust. This stress can lead to earthquakes and volcanoes. When the land pulls apart enough, water from nearby seas or oceans may eventually flood the area, turning part of the continent into an ocean basin. History teaches us that such events have happened before. For example, the Atlantic Ocean was born when another supercontinent broke apart over 200 million years ago. More recently, the Red Sea formed when the Arabian Plate and the African Plate separated. Experts say the East African Rift will follow the same pattern. Although it might take millions of years for a full ocean to form, parts of the shift are happening now. That is why local communities sometimes face earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or cracks appearing in the ground. Tech leaders like Elon Musk have made bold claims about Africa's future because of these changes. While some scientists focus on the slow-moving nature of plate tectonics, Musk warns that parts of the continent could be at risk sooner than expected. Regardless of when the most dramatic changes occur, the East African Rift reminds us that Earth is never truly still. Each earthquake or crack in the ground is a sign that our planet continues to evolve, shaping new oceans, continents, and landscapes over vast stretches of time. With each day, the rift grows, inching closer to a future that will reshape Africa. Geological features. The African continent is home to a breathtaking geological wonder called the East African Rift. This massive fracture in the Earth's crust extends from Ethiopia to Mozambique, slowly tearing Africa into two distinct pieces. At its core, the rift is a boundary between the Somali Plate on the east and the Nubian Plate on the west. From space, the East African Rift appears as a valley dotted with deep lakes, rugged cliffs, and occasionally active volcanoes. It is split into two main branches, the Eastern Rift, sometimes called the Gregory Rift, and the Western Rift, or Albertine Rift. Together, they shape the land in remarkable ways, forming some of the most dramatic landscapes on our planet. One fascinating geological feature is the formation of cracks in the ground, which serve as snapshots of the wider forces at play. For instance, a crack in Kenya made headlines when it suddenly opened near a busy highway, revealing just how active these tectonic processes are. While it seemed to appear overnight, it was actually the result of slow underground movement over thousands of years. Volcanoes are another key feature of this region. The heat from the Earth's mantle rises through weakened parts of the crust, leading to volcanic eruptions. Some of these volcanoes, like Ethiopia's Erta, are continuously active, offering a window into our planet's fiery core. When magma intrudes near the surface, it can trigger earthquakes that shake nearby communities. Deep lakes, such as Lake Tanganyika and Lake Malawi, fill parts of the rift's basins. Formed over millions of years, these lakes can be incredibly deep and life-giving, hosting unique species that thrive in their waters. The rift's highlands and escarpments, where steep cliffs tower over valley floors, also stand as dramatic markers of Earth's restless nature. Scientists believe the future of these geological features lies in the eventual creation of a new ocean. Over millions of years, water from the Red Sea and Indian Ocean will flood the deepest parts of the rift, separating eastern Africa from the rest of the continent. Traces of this ocean formation are already visible in the Afar Depression, perched below sea level. From towering volcanoes to wide-open fissures, the East African Rift showcases our planet's geological dynamism. It is a place where continents are sculpted, whole ecosystems adapt to ever-changing conditions, and new oceans brew beneath the surface. In witnessing these features, we gain a profound respect for the power that has shaped Earth for billions of years. The Kenyan Crack.
A massive crack that's up to 50 feet deep suddenly opened up in the ground in Africa.
The Kenyan Crack is one of the most striking signs that Africa is slowly being torn apart. In March 2018, a massive fissure opened up near the town of Mai Mahiu, west of Nairobi, revealing a deep chasm that reached over 50 feet in some places. Local residents described the chilling sound of the earth splitting apart without warning. One family was forced to flee their home when the ground beneath them gave way, leaving half their house on the edge of a gaping hole. Road travel also became a nightmare as the rift cut through a busy highway. Although it seemed to appear overnight, this giant crack did not form in a single day. It is part of the East African Rift, where the Somali Plate is drifting away from the Nubian Plate. Over countless years, underground forces put stress on the crust, creating weak zones. Heavy rains and erosion can expose these older fractures, making it look as though the ground split in an instant. Scientists say this ongoing process will continue, and the crack may lengthen or deepen as tectonic activity persists. The crack's visible growth raises questions about the future of Kenya and neighboring regions. If sections of land keep shifting, people may face sudden road closures, damaged properties, and potential displacement. Some experts predict that more cracks could open elsewhere, especially during heavy rainfall or seismic events. While the complete separation of East Africa might take millions of years, communities already feel the challenges of living on shifting ground. In the meantime, local authorities and engineers work to fill parts of the fissure with concrete or stones, hoping to keep roads open. Yet these efforts are only band-aid solutions. Deeper movements far below the surface will remain unstoppable. Many questions remain. Should people relocate, or can better infrastructure withstand the strain? Nobody has all the answers, but this crack reminds us that Earth is always changing. For now, the Kenyan crack stands as a dramatic preview of the powerful forces shaping Africa's future landscape. Elon Musk, known for his bold predictions, claims Africa is unprepared for major earthquakes linked to this rift activity. Though his warnings may seem extreme, they underscore the region's limited ability to handle sudden shifts. With inadequate infrastructure and limited resources, any serious seismic event could have devastating consequences for local communities and economies. Preparedness matters. Future ocean formation. One day, Africa will look different. The East African Rift is slowly pulling the land apart, and in a few million years, a brand new ocean may appear right where fields and roads lie today. This rift is made up of two giant plates, the Nubian and Somali plates, which are gradually drifting away from each other. Although their movement is only a few millimeters each year, that slow process will add up over time. Eventually, water from the Red Sea and Indian Ocean will flood into the low-lying Afar Depression in Ethiopia, giving rise to an entirely new body of water. Scientists say this could happen within the next 5 to 10 million years. That may sound like a long time, but geologically, it is almost the blink of an eye. By studying past events, such as the creation of the Atlantic Ocean, experts believe the splitting process will follow a familiar pattern. First, cracks form along a rift, then lava and volcanic activity accelerate the thinning of the crust, and finally, seawater rushes in to fill the gap. Already, we see hints of this future ocean in Kenya and Ethiopia. Cracks like the one in Mai Mahiu, which disrupted a busy highway in 2018, remind people that the ground beneath them is anything but stable. Earthquakes are becoming more common near volcanoes like Fenty, and scientists worry that magma moving closer to the surface can lead to eruptions. Although these changes might take many centuries to reshape the land, they are happening right now beneath our feet. Several big lakes have formed within the rift, including Lake Tanganyika and Lake Malawi, both known for their incredible depth and unique fish species. But these are previews of what might happen when a full ocean finally emerges. Over millions of years, the Somali plate will drift so far that it completely splits off from the rest of Africa. At that point, the Rift Valley will have transformed into a new ocean basin, similar to how the Red Sea once formed.
I'm talking about the continent of Africa splitting into two. It's being predicted now. An entirely new ocean could emerge in the African continent.
The thought of an inland ocean swallowing parts of East Africa can seem scary, especially for people living in high-risk zones. Tectonic forces often lead to earthquakes, floods, and other hazards that are difficult to predict. Yet this is how our planet evolves. From the breakup of Pangaea to the birth of the Atlantic, Earth is shaped by the slow dance of its tectonic plates. The same grand process is now unfolding in East Africa. 2005 Afar Depression Event. The 2005 Afar Depression Event is one of the most dramatic geologic episodes in recent history. It took place in the Afar region of northern Ethiopia, where three massive tectonic plates, the African, Somali, and Arabian, meet. In September of that year, the land tore apart with shocking speed, revealing just how active Earth's inner workings can be. It started with a series of earthquakes, which began small but soon grew in intensity. Locals felt the ground tremble day after day. Then, as the quakes intensified, large cracks began forming across the dry and rocky terrain. Over the course of just a few weeks, a section of the ground shifted by an astonishing 26 feet. For something that usually takes millions of years, it was a dramatic transformation to witness in real time. Volcanic eruptions added to the chaos. Dabahu volcano, long considered quiet, roared to life, spewing ash into the sky and coating nearby areas with a fine layer of dust. Molten rock, or magma, pushed upward through these new fissures, shaping fresh pieces of oceanic crust along the rift. Scientists looked on in awe, as events they typically studied far below the ocean's surface were now happening on land. This sudden activity offered experts a unique chance to study continental breakup as it unfolded. Armed with satellite imagery, GPS data, and seismic instruments, teams gathered readings that showed how magma intrusions work together with tectonic forces to split continents. They discovered that while plate tectonics usually move slowly, sudden bursts of activity can speed up changes on the surface. People living near the epicenter experienced this dramatic event firsthand. Some homes and buildings were damaged by the shaking ground, while farmland and roads were ripped apart. Although the death toll remained low, the event caused major disruptions in local communities. It also served as a stark wake-up call, reminding everyone in the region that the East African Rift is more than just an interesting fact in textbooks. It is a force shaping their daily lives. Between 2005 and 2010, scientists recorded at least 13 distinct magmatic episodes in the area, each adding new data about how the Earth's crust grows under stress. Ultimately, The 2005 Afar Depression event was a rare, real-time showcase of continental rifting, giving the world a front-row seat to one of Earth's most powerful processes. For many, it underscored the potential risks of living in an active rift zone, where future seismic and volcanic eruptions could alter the landscape again. Elon Musk's warning. Elon Musk, famous for his ambitious projects and big ideas, has turned his attention to the East African rift, and his message is unsettling. While many scientists say that it could take millions of years for Africa to split into two continents, Musk insists the process may happen much faster than people expect. He claims his team's advanced system has analyzed data on seismic activity and volcanic patterns, and the results hint at major changes in Africa's geology sooner rather than later. At the heart of his warning is the fear that millions of people across East Africa are not prepared for strong earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. Many areas in the Rift Valley, such as Ethiopia and Kenya, have limited infrastructure that cannot withstand extreme shaking or sudden cracks in the ground. According to Musk, if a powerful quake hits, buildings will crumble, roads will tear apart, and major flooding could follow as rifts fill with water from the Red Sea or the Indian Ocean. He pictures entire communities left without homes or basic services, setting off a humanitarian disaster on a huge scale. Musk's words paint a grim picture of the future: massive fissures deepening, lakes forming, and entire cities possibly ending up underwater. In his view, the worst part is that these threats could arrive while governments and citizens are still unprepared. He criticizes the lack of modern seismic monitoring stations and reliable warning systems in the region. Without investments in stronger buildings and improved technology, Musk says that people living along the rift have few defenses against nature's forces. His predictions sound extreme, but they highlight a crucial point. The Earth is always moving, and the East African rift is a prime example. Even if it happens at only a few millimeters a year, those small shifts add up over time. Musk's claim is that, should certain geological conditions line up, the speed of these changes could spike unexpectedly, leading to a sudden burst of earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. Recent earthquakes in Yellowstone. Hundreds of earthquakes have hit Yellowstone National Park in recent months, according to officials. While most of these earthquakes are minor and undetectable to humans, they still raise concerns among scientists and officials. The majority of these earthquakes occur along a hidden fissure from a significant eruption that occurred 2.1 million years ago, between Hebgen Lake and the Yellowstone caldera. The forces beneath the park's surface are responsible for these little tremors, which remind us of Yellowstone's potential for eruptions in future. But what happens when these small earthquakes turn into something bigger? Before we dive deeper, let's talk about Yellowstone. Yellowstone National Park is located in the northwest corner of Wyoming. It is the first national park in the United States. The park, which goes across Montana and Idaho, is known for its diverse wildlife, geothermal features, biomes, and rocky areas. Native Americans have inhabited the Yellowstone region for at least 11,000 years, with organized exploration beginning in the late 1860s. The park's unique geology, with its hidden fissures and underground forces, makes it a fascinating yet potentially dangerous place. The park's northern region has been hit by an earthquake swarm, with over 3,000 small quakes occurring in just 3 months in 1985. This incident, caused by the Yellowstone caldera's slight sinking,
and this restless Yellowstone caldera is truly living, breathing, and every once in a while it burps.
has raised concerns about the potential for a larger, more devastating event. As the Earth's crust is stretched and pulled, microscopic cracks form, allowing volcanic fluids to migrate and create tremors. The rock along these faults is prone to sliding or breaking, releasing energy through shock waves that echoes around the surrounding rock. This process, known as earthquake swarms, is a common occurrence in Yellowstone, with the largest swarm recorded in 1985. Hundreds of earthquakes have been recorded in the park's northwestern region, with the strongest reaching a magnitude of 3.9. The frequency and intensity of these quakes are a reminder of the park's volatile geology. The Yellowstone system is fueled by two powerful forces: a volcanic system that stresses the Earth's crust, and a tectonic system that appears to be an active extensional zone from east to west. As a result, the park experiences a unique combination of geological activity, including earthquakes, hydrothermal activity, and volcanic eruptions. Scientists are eager to understand the underlying forces driving Yellowstone's seismic activity.
In 1975, there was a magnitude 6 earthquake that occurred in the park, and that was widely felt. Didn't cause a lot of damage because it was in a remote area, but any one of those things, a larger earthquake, a steam eruption.
By analyzing seismic waves generated by earthquakes, they can create visualizations of the magma chamber and caldera, gaining valuable insights into the park's geological history. An extensive monitoring system has been established to track Yellowstone's every move, providing critical data that can help predict and prepare for potential risks. The Earthquake Hazards Program has been monitoring Yellowstone's seismic activity since 1973, and the results are astounding. Nearly 48,000 earthquakes have struck the area, with only one magnitude 6 earthquake occurring during that time. However, the significance of these earthquakes extends beyond the park's boundaries. They play a crucial role in maintaining Yellowstone's hydrothermal activity, keeping the pipeline open and allowing hot water and steam to erupt from the Earth's surface. One of the most breathtaking examples of this hydrothermal activity is the Great Prism Spring, a vibrant turquoise pool surrounded by a display of colors. As the hot water and steam rise to the surface, they deposit minerals and create a stunning display of orange, yellow, and green hues. Without these periodic disturbances, mineral deposits could plug the small cracks and channels, silencing the park's iconic geysers and hot springs. This natural wonder is evidence of the dynamic forces that shape Yellowstone, and a reminder of the beauty and power that lies beneath our feet. The Yellowstone caldera was formed as a result of one of the most catastrophic volcanic events in Earth's history. This event occurred around 640,000 years ago and was the culmination of 3 massive eruptions over the past 2.1 million years, each more powerful than the last. The first eruption, known as the Huckleberry Ridge eruption, occurred around 2.1 million years ago and created a caldera over 60 miles wide. The second eruption, the Mesa Falls eruption, happened 1.3 million years later and formed the Island Park caldera and the Mesa Falls Tuff. However, it was the third and final eruption, known as the Lava Creek eruption, that created the Yellowstone caldera as we know it today. This eruption was truly massive, throwing an astonishing 240 cubic meters of rock, ash, and volcanic gases into the atmosphere. The scale of this event is almost immeasurable, with ash capable of burying cities and countryside and disrupting agriculture and infrastructure on an unprecedented scale. The Lava Creek eruption had a profound impact on the environment, covering large areas of the continent in ash and changing the world's climate for years. The eruption was so powerful that it created a caldera over 30 miles wide and 45 miles long, which is now home to Yellowstone Lake. Recent discoveries have revealed that there are 2 magma chambers under the caldera, with the deeper chamber being 4.5 times larger than the first. These chambers are filled with molten rock that feeds geysers, hot springs, and mud puddles, making Yellowstone one of the most geologically active places on Earth. The history of Yellowstone's tremors is extensive, with records of earthquakes dating back to the early 20th century. In recent years, there has been an increase in the number of tremors, which has led to concerns about the potential for a major eruption. While the possibility of a major eruption is low, it's essential to monitor the park's geological activity closely. Scientists use a range of techniques, including seismometers and GPS, to track the movement of magma and gas beneath the surface. This information helps them to understand the park's geological activity and provide early warnings of any potential eruptions. Yellowstone's seismic history. From small, insignificant tremors to massive, earth-shaking quakes, Yellowstone has experienced it all. But what drives this seismic activity, and what can we learn from the park's history of earthquakes? The park sits atop a network of fault lines associated with a buried supervolcano deep beneath the ground. Earthquakes occur as the region's fault lines stretch apart and as magma, water, and gas move beneath the surface. Yellowstone is one of the most seismically active regions in the U.S., with an average of around 1,500 to 2,500 located earthquakes per year. The majority of these earthquakes are too small to be felt by humans, but are detected by a sophisticated network of about 50 seismometers called the Yellowstone Seismic Network, YSN. The largest quake on record in Yellowstone was the magnitude 7.3 Hebgen Lake quake, which occurred on August 17, 1959.
The San Francisco earthquake of 1906, that famous earthquake. The epicenter of this was right on the edge of Yellowstone, but the most damage occurred in Madison Canyon, which is about a half hour outside of the park in West Yellowstone.
This powerful earthquake shook the entire region, causing widespread damage and landslides that resulted in loss of life. With a magnitude of 7.3, it was one of the most powerful earthquakes to hit the region in recent history. The earthquake's impact was felt far and wide, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. The earthquake struck at 11:37 p.m. MST, catching residents off guard. Its epicenter was located outside the western boundary of Yellowstone National Park, but its effects were felt throughout the park and beyond. The earthquake triggered massive landslides, destroyed roads and bridges, and claimed the lives of 28 people. One of the most significant consequences of the earthquake was the destruction of the Hebgen Dam, which triggered a flood that overflowed on the landscape and permanently changed the course of the Madison River. The floodwaters created a new body of water, now known as Quake Lake, which has become a popular spot for boating and fishing. The earthquake also had a profound impact on the geothermal features of Yellowstone National Park. Previously dormant geysers suddenly erupted in a rhythmic cycle, and hot springs and fumaroles became more active. In the aftermath of the earthquake, communities came together to rebuild and recover. The vulnerability of the area was thoroughly assessed, leading to significant changes in building codes, emergency plans, and controls. Scientists and researchers at the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory and the University of Utah worked tirelessly to monitor and mitigate the park's risks, using cutting-edge technology and real-time data to alert authorities to signs of impending volcanic activity. Today, the Hebgen Lake earthquake is remembered as a sobering and refreshing reminder of the importance of preparedness and vigilance. Another significant seismic event occurred in October 1983, when a magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck Idaho's Bora Peak. While not as severe as the Hebgen Lake earthquake, it still had a damaging effect on Idaho and its neighboring states, including Wyoming and Montana. It was a shallow earthquake, which means it happened close to the Earth's surface, and that's why it caused so much damage. Many people felt the earthquake, and it was very scary. Some people were even injured, and there was a lot of damage to buildings and roads. The earthquake also caused landslides and rockfalls, which blocked some roads and made it hard for people to travel. The town of Challis, Idaho, was especially affected by the earthquake. Many buildings were damaged, and some even collapsed. The town's water and electricity systems were also affected, leaving many people without water or power. This earthquake was a reminder that Yellowstone's seismic activity is not limited to the park itself, but can affect the surrounding regions as well. Notable earthquakes in Yellowstone. The Yellowstone National Park experienced a significant seismic event in 2017, with the greatest earthquake occurring on June 16th at 6:48 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. This earthquake had a magnitude of 4.36, making it the most powerful earthquake in the park that year.
And interestingly enough, in 2017, we noticed something different about it. So not only was it happening more often, it was happening about every 29 to 30 minutes instead of 40 minutes in 2017. But each episode was lasting about a minute or so longer.
Its epicenter was located approximately 9 miles north of West Yellowstone, Montana, and was felt in the nearby communities of Gardner and West Yellowstone. Notably, this earthquake was part of a larger seismic sequence known as the Maple Creek Swarm, which began on June 12, 2017, and continued until October of the same year. During this time, a cluster of over 2,475 earthquakes was detected 6 miles north of West Yellowstone, Montana, and on the park's west border. This swarm of earthquakes is not uncommon in the Yellowstone region, as similar sequences account for nearly half of the total seismicity in the area. In response to this seismic activity,
overall, there were about 125 earthquakes that occurred in that swarm. Now that may sound like a lot, but that's actually par for the course for Yellowstone, kind of background activity. Yellowstone has lots and lots of seismic swarms.
a team of researchers from the University of Utah, in partnership with the University of Texas El Paso and Yellowstone National Park, conducted a study in November 2017. As part of this study, which began in 2015, the team temporarily deployed 290 shock detectors in and around the Upper Geyser Basin. The purpose of this deployment was to record shock signals from diverse thermal characteristics, with a focus on Geyser Hill. The goal was to determine the underground root of thermal phenomena and whether they originate from a similar reservoir or separate sources. This study built upon previous research conducted in 2015, which focused on Old Faithful's plumbing infrastructure. By exploring the underlying causes of Yellowstone's geothermal features, scientists can gain a deeper understanding of the park's complex geological processes and better monitor seismic activity in the region. Just when you thought you've seen it all, watch the 1959 earthquake disaster that made history. With a magnitude of 7.3, it was a significant event that shook the park, causing widespread destruction and loss of 28 lives. The earthquake triggered a landslide that blocked the Madison River, creating Earthquake Lake, which still exists today.
Quake Lake. This is a tragic story that really needs to be told. An earthquake struck the Hebgen Lake area. The epicenter was right underneath the lake.
The quake also damaged the park's geothermal systems, including Old Faithful Geyser, and caused the previously peaceful Sapphire Pool to erupt over 200 feet high. In the years following the earthquake, the park experienced increased seismic activity, including the eruption of Steamboat, the world's tallest geyser, in 1961. The U.S. Forest Service established the Earthquake Lake Visitor Center in 1967 to educate visitors about the earthquake and its effects. Today, Yellowstone continues to experience seismic activity, with hundreds of earthquakes recorded in recent years. Between June and September 2017, over 2,400 earthquakes occurred, with some reaching magnitudes of up to 4.4. While the likelihood of a catastrophic eruption is considered low, scientists and experts are closely monitoring the situation due to public concerns and growing awareness. Visitors to the park can still see the effects of the 1959 earthquake, including the barren mountainside and the gray, soggy trees at the bottom of Earthquake Lake. The Earthquake Lake Visitor Center and the Cabin Creek Scarp area offer insight into the park's seismic history and the geological forces that shape the region. In recent years, Yellowstone has experienced an increase in seismic activity, with hundreds of small earthquakes occurring since 2017. While these earthquakes have not garnered as much attention as the Hebgen Lake and Bora Peak earthquakes, they are still an important reminder of the park's geological activity. Scientists believe that these small earthquakes are related to the movement of magma and gas beneath the surface, which can help us better understand the park's volcanic system. So, what can we learn from Yellowstone's seismic history? Firstly, it's essential to understand that earthquakes are a natural phenomenon and can occur at any time. While most earthquakes are small and insignificant, some can be powerful and damaging. Do you think these measures are going to be effective? Let's hear your thoughts in the comment section.